She hid under the bed to spy on her husband, but it quickly backfired on her. Even after several years of marriage, couples may sometimes still find themselves doubting whether their relationship is meant to be. For this wife, she wanted to see if her husband really loved her, so she came up with a plan to make him prove his love for her. However, her plan backfired and left her baffled and terrified. When two people become a couple, they know right away that there will be a special bond between them. However, not all relationships are made equal. One wife thought of testing the loyalty of her husband. She hid under the bed so she could hear how he would react to his strange prank. Even though she found out his true feelings, it proved to be a really bad idea. After being happily married for years, this wife began to feel that her husband was pulling away from her. She was pretty sure he no longer loved her, so she came up with a perfect plan in order to make her husband prove he did. She thought of an elaborate prank using the details of the life they'd lived together to find out his real feelings. However, she was left speechless by his reaction. While the wife was making plans for her prank, it seemed like her husband kept to himself more than ever. Could it be that he was having an affair? Or perhaps he had a secret vice or addiction which would create a rift in their marriage? She was set on finding out. You might want to question your own partner when you find out the real answer. Because of her distrust of her husband, the woman wrote a note which hashed out all the details of their marriage. She wanted to know where things had gone wrong. Even though she still loved him with all of her heart, she needed to know if he felt the same, or was just pretending and wasting their time. To find out whether or not her husband loved her, the wife included in her letter everything about their relationship. She ended it by demanding a divorce. This letter would be what she would leave him to find out his real reaction. Sadly, her scheme wouldn't go off without a hitch. The wife thought of hiding under the bed and leaving the note on top to see the reaction of her husband to her heartbreaking letter. That way she'd find out her husband's true feelings when he read the note. It was indeed a tricky prank to pull, but she felt like this was the only way she could get his honest reaction. However, would he see through all that she'd done and know that she was lying? In the wife's mind, the prank was simple and everything would go according to plan. She would hide as her husband read the letter. When she heard him crying or expressing heartbreak in some other way, she'd show herself and comfort him. She would then know their marriage was strong. However, when her husband found the note, he wouldn't cry at all. As a matter of fact, his reaction will probably baffle you. In the note, the wife wrote that from her point of view, the love in their relationship had faded and their marriage was over. She may have been blunt, but she knew it was the only way she could get a reaction from her husband. She put the note on their bed and took her place under it. This became one of the worst decisions that she'd ever made. Hiding under the bed, she waited for her husband to arrive and read the note. She was under there for quite a while and had a lot of time to ruminate on her plan. There were a lot of questions in her mind. Was it right to do this to find out whether her husband still loved her? Would he react like how she thought he would? The answers to these questions soon came, but they were not what she'd expected. While waiting for her husband to come back home, the wife became more and more fearful. Soon enough, she heard him come inside their home, go up the stairs and head to their bedroom. Although he knew his wife would be home at the time, he didn't expect to find her note in her place. Keep watching to find out about his wife's reaction when he entered the room. When her husband finally went inside the bedroom, he paused to read the note. She was sure it was him because she saw his feet as he walked around the room. As he was reading her note, she felt frozen with fear. This moment could break her marriage and she simply couldn't wait for his reaction. Listen on to find out about the devastating reaction. After he finished reading the note, her husband began to laugh. The wife then heard him make a phone call to a friend. During the call, she heard him say, "My marriage is finally over. I'll see you in a minute." After the call, he quickly walked out of the room. The wife couldn't believe she just heard those things, but she didn't know what would happen next. The woman was really stunned by the phone call her husband made. Her husband wasn't only happy that their marriage ended, but he also had someone who he confided in about it. His wife's mind began reeling, thinking about who the person on the other line was. Was it one of his buddies or a mistress? You might laugh when you hear the real answer. The woman was left in tears beneath the bed by this turn of events. She'd hoped that after reading the note, her husband would cry or scream, which would prove that he really did love her. Sadly, it seemed like that wasn't the case. She'd need to pay the price for starting this whole thing, whatever that may be. In her mind, the woman was now sure that she needed to deal with a lot more than before she hid under that bed. Her husband was not only happy to be free from their relationship, but he might also be in another one already. The thought of her husband possibly cheating on her absolutely broke her heart, but was it really true? The woman finally got out from under the bed, but she didn't know what to do next. She had no idea how she could rebuild her life now that her marriage was falling apart. However, there was something on the bed that caught her eye. Another note was next to the one that she had left. Even though her husband was only in the room for a short moment, he'd left his wife a note to read. At this point, the story gets much more interesting. After the strange turn of events, she was absolutely heartbroken. With tears falling down her face, she picked up her husband's note and tried to read it. Despite how terrible she felt, she was able to read the words, "Dear wife," but she couldn't make herself continue reading the rest of the note without crying. The woman felt like she already knew what was on her husband's short note. After all, she did hear him say he was really happy their marriage was over. There isn't much else to say, is there? Whatever it was, it only took up a couple of sentences on the page. It was most likely to the point, but what exactly did the note say? After plucking up the courage to read the letter, she saw something stunning. "Dear wife, next time you try to trick me into proving my love, make sure your feet aren't sticking out from underneath the bed," the letter read. This woman might never be able to live down how her plan had terribly backfired. She'd planned her prank for weeks but forgot to make sure she was completely under the bed before her husband walked into the room. This mistake proved that she had a husband who was lighthearted. He knew how to take a joke, something that's useful if not necessary in any relationship. Would this woman ever be able to get over her embarrassment? As she put the pieces together, the woman realized her husband's laughter wasn't genuine and the phone call was fake. Also, she hadn't just totally ruined her marriage. That's some valuable lesson right there. Never toy with other people's emotions. However, did she truly learn her lesson, and did her husband forgive her? It doesn't really take an elaborate prank to know whether or not your partner loves you. All it takes is for you to be open and honest. This was something the woman quickly learned after her scheme failed. Luckily, their marriage didn't end because of this prank. However, did the pair stay together much longer? More often than not, you don't really have to resort to elaborate measures in order to find out your partner's real feelings if the relationship between you is built on trust. This wife may not have gotten the heartbroken reaction that she wanted when she pulled her sadistic prank, but nonetheless, their relationship still grew stronger and more long-lasting because of it.